Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Supporting Yah's Cornerstone. My name is Heshra. In today's video, I'm going to speak about one of the reasons I've known women in this way of life, in the Hebrew Israelite way of life, to commit adultery. It's my hope that not just in this video, but in a series I plan to do on this, that the tips I give within a video can help any sister that is having issues within a marriage, and that she can use some of these tips to help her make it through difficult moments without committing adultery. And that I hope that it will be a help and a defense against that. So that's my hope with this series. I plan on going over one issue per video. I listed several reasons why I've known it to happen in the video, I think, adultery as it's defined by Yah in the Torah. And so I just thought it might be helpful for me to go over those one by one and to give tips. So in this video, I'm going to deal with marriage frustration, because over the years I've known sisters to commit adultery because basically sometimes they were just frustrated with their marriage at the moment. And through that frustration, and they ended up committing adultery sometimes. That I have known that to happen. So in today's video in particular, I'm going to speak about marriage frustration. So you may be thinking, well, if a woman is seeking to live for Yahweh, why would she commit adultery? Well, there are many reasons that could happen. Situations just happen sometimes, and we sometimes seek comfort from other men, and it ends up or getting counseling sometimes from other men that and sometimes it just ends up through that in an adulterous situation. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to seek counsel from a moray that is, that has developed a spirit to be able to deal with those issues. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying most of the time, or sometimes, women will seek counsel or comfort from men that's, just maybe somebody they work with, maybe they consider themselves friends with, or somebody who may mean well, so to speak, but maybe they don't have the spirit or the discipline yet to be able to counsel a woman concerning her husband, And I say that in that way because sometimes brothers are in their own walk and struggles, and maybe they are at certain points. Like as a teacher, for example, maybe they're not just at that point to be able to counsel women concerning their marriages without temptation being there. But most of the time, I think women get counsel and comfort from people that are just men that's just in their daily life. Like I said before, maybe a coworker, maybe a man they consider to be a friend, or something. So it's just situations sometimes. Sometimes it's mindsets can cause people to consider adultery an option, or being with another man other than their husband an option. Because especially when you transitioning from being in secular society and coming into Yah's knowledge, sometimes we still have mindsets that are according to the secular life or the ungodly life we lived before. Sometimes we bring that into our change or into this way of life. And then sometimes it's just plain old temptation, and it happens. And we have examples of this in the Tanakh or in the Bible. We have examples of people who just fell to temptation that were sincere in their walk with Yah, but they ended up, falling into various temptations. So it just happens sometimes. Just because a woman in this way of life commits adultery does not mean that she was not sincere in her walk. Now, many years ago, I probably didn't understand it that way, but I thank y'all that in over 20 years of in my walk with y'all and seeking to grow and build a relationship with him, that I have a better understanding than I had when I started. Everybody that sins against y'all in this way of life, it doesn't mean that they're not sincere. We all have our struggles and just different things, and things happen and situations happen sometimes. And so that's not necessarily a reflection of a person's sincerity, because some women I've known to commit adultery in this way of life, I knew them personally and I knew them to be sincere. They just, sometimes you get tested. We all get tested with different things. Situations come up, whether it's adultery, whether it's with children or spouses or family or friends or whatever. Something comes along to test whether we're going to endure and do what we know to do according to Yah, or whether we're going to do something else. And some of us overcome that and some of us don't. And that's just is what it is sometimes. My goal for doing this series is to encourage the daughters of Yah not to commit adultery. And I would encourage all married women not to commit adultery. My hope is by sharing some tips and solutions Yah has blessed me to learn over the years, that this can be helpful to you. And so that's my main goal. Sorry about that brief interruption. But in today's video, I'm going to speak particularly about marriage frustration. That's what this particular video will be about. And the next one, I'll choose another reason. And like I said, I listed those basic reasons in one of the videos where I define adultery according to Yah and the Tanakh or the Bible. And so this is just one of the reasons. So marriage frustration. Marriage frustration has been one of the top reasons I have seen over the years that I've known women to commit adultery. And mostly, and when I look down, I'm just looking down at my notes. And mostly it comes from frustration with their husband. And it could be a variety of reasons, like maybe he has character flaws. Maybe they don't agree with some decisions he's making, and that's frustrating. Money issues, children issues, or just frustrated with their relationship in general. Okay, so those are some of the different various reasons I have known women to be frustrated within their marriages. And that's not, I wouldn't say that is uncommon. I would say, especially in today's world and our backgrounds, that's definitely normal, you know. So it's a normal thing. It can be normal. First, I think it's important to ask yourself, is my frustration legitimate? And this is something that as I speak, I'm speaking a lot of times through experience. Also, that's the whole point of this channel too, is that I share some, not just things I've observed and learned from other people's experience, and some things I've experienced myself, questions I've asked myself. So this is sometimes something that I would have to ask myself, is my frustration legitimate? And in the world we live in today, it's like all frustration is legitimate. But as you walk with Yah, what I've learned is all frustration is not necessarily legitimate. So sometimes you can have a feeling of anger or frustration or something, or even happiness sometimes. That's not legitimate. So in other words, what I'm saying is sometimes we're happy about things we shouldn't be, or we're sad about things we shouldn't be, or we're angry about things that we shouldn't be. So that's something to look at first. Is your frustration legitimate? Sometimes we find that we're frustrated with something that is right and is being done right if it has to do with an action per se. Let's say, for example, and I'm going to use just a very basic, simple example. Let's say the husband is transitioning the family from pork to kosher meat. Now, the wife may get frustrated with that. Maybe she's used to pork. She enjoyed it. So now she's frustrated because I have to eat the beef. It's not that the beef is not cooked well. It's not that the flounder is not being cooked well. It's just that I'm frustrated because instead of flounder, I'm used to the catfish. That's what I want. Instead of the beef, I'm used to the pork chops, and that's what I want. So I'm just trying to give a basic, simple example. So that frustration would really not be legitimate. And in that case, that's a situation where a person will have to deal with themselves. And I've had situations in this way of life where I had to deal with myself. And I realized that the issue was me and my thinking. So I think that's the first thing you have to look at when it comes to if you're frustrated with your spouse is your frustration legitimate? Or do you have to have a mind maybe reset about something? Because if something is not against Yah and it's being done properly, whatever it is, and I want to say patience has been given in the situation, and it's just kind of time to accept certain things, then that's when you kind of have to, for sure, deal with yourself and your thinking. So it's good to sometimes just start right there with that question. So let's say that your frustration is legitimate. Okay. You looked at everything. Maybe you even prayed about it. And, so that's fine. Then I'm going to go over some reasoning, some different things, and that may be causing your frustration. Sometimes character flaws can be a bit with concerning your husband, can be a big frustration to a lot of wives, to a lot of women. Okay. And it can be serious depending on what the character flaw is. But so a few things that we have to remember is, one, your husband is a human being. Okay. Number two, he's just a man. Just like we're just women, so to speak, in a regular sense. We come with our good points and our bad points. We've all had our experiences and our backgrounds that have helped shape who we are. So some of our experiences and our backgrounds shaped us in ways that were unrighteous or that were bad. Okay. We also had some experiences and things that helped in ways and backgrounds that help shape us in good ways. Some of us have good work ethic because of how we were raised. Some of us at the same time also have bad character flaws and bad other bad traits because of how we were raised. Some of us have bad character flaws just because we have various bad character flaws that we just had, however it came about. Some of us have bad habits because of our experiences and things. Some of us developed bad character flaws and bad habits through our experiences over time. For example, some men don't start out in life mistreating women, but sometimes they have experiences that cause them to have disrespect for women, and so therefore they want to treat every woman in a certain type of way because of this particular bad experience. So our experiences can shape us in good ways. Our experience can shape us in bad ways, and that's important to remember. And most of the time, when it comes to us who are coming into this way of life, after living secular lives in the world, most of us gonna come with a whole lot of with a variety of character flaws or bad habits. It's important to remember that when it comes to our husbands, in cases where the husband has decided to live for y'all, this didn't auto-correct all his character flaws or ensure he would always make good decisions. So why do I say that? Okay, for those of you who type, you type on the Word program on the computer, you have something called autocorrect there. And so you know about that. So as you're typing, and if you misspell something or your grammar is wrong, it'll highlight it, or sometimes it'll actually change it or show you how to change it. Okay. Well, in life, when it comes to us and our characters, that doesn't happen that way. So your husband may say, hey, I'm going to live for y'all. This is what I'm doing. And he may be sincere about it. But that's not going to change every single character flaw or bad habit that he has just because he's made that decision. So the same patience and understanding we would give to a stranger is the same patience and understanding we need to give to our spouse. And another thing that I've learned in this way of life is that a lot of times Yah helps us correct character flaws and bad habits over time. I hadn't really seen it where a person wake up, and even in my own life with myself, where I one day was this way and the next day another way. And normally, sometimes Yah has to show us ourselves first. Sometimes he has to show us we have a bad temper, or he has to show us we have this problem or that problem. Then he works with us to change it. A lot of times how he works with us to change it, what I found is through situations. So in other words, things get worse before it get better. And that can be hard to deal with. And so this process, even with our husbands, can take patience. So you want to have patience and understanding with your husband concerning his character flaws and his bad habits. Because just like we come into y'all with those things, they come into y'all with those things too. And a lot of them is not going to be changed overnight. Number 2, don't compare your spouse to other men. That's just not good at all. It's not good for us to compare ourselves to each other. It's just not. And what am I saying? I'm saying that that's not an overall good practice. It's not good for women to compare each other. It's not good for brothers to compare their wife to this person. It's not good for us as women to comparing. It's just not good. So do not compare your husband to other people's husbands or to other brothers. Just if you do that, just practice not doing it. When you feel the thought coming to your mind, just understand that that's not good practice and focus on something else, on another thought. It goes back to what I said earlier. And when I'm looking down, I'm just looking down at my notes. We all have our own experiences that have shaped who we are, have shaped our character, that have shaped our good habits and our bad habits. And then another thing too is sometimes people can be at different points in their journey with Yah. I can say, let's say, and I'm just going to break it down into food so we can just break it down to a very simple example. This person may know how to cook beef or kosher fish well because maybe they made that transition 5-6 years ago, and they're at that point in their journey where they accepted it. They've learned how to cook it well. They're over the taste of pork. They're over the taste of catfish. They're no longer worried about that. Well, your spouse may just be in that process. Maybe it's a little harder for them for whatever reasons. They just started 2 years ago. So it wouldn't be fair for me to compare that to this person who has walked through the difficulty and now they're at the conclusion. For example, what one brother has overcome through years or months of struggle, your husband may be at the beginning of his journey with that character flaw or situation. And that's why it's not good to compare. And then everybody has their strongest weak point. For one person, switching to kosher food may be no problem. For another person, it may be a huge problem that takes them a while to overcome. Everybody seems to have their strongest weak point. That's one thing I've noticed and learned too. And everybody's strongest weak point is not always the same thing. So that's why it's not good to compare either. And then to believe that nobody has a weak point, that's just not true. I have very seldom seen that to be true. It's just that you don't know what that was or what that is. But I guarantee you who do know what it is, and that's the greater. Because a lot of times you find that those are the things the Creator tests us on. The Creator knows our weak points, and sometimes it seems like we tried by our weak points. And He knows us as individuals and in our minds. So that's just something to thinking about, to consider as you think about your spouse and the problems that you all may be having. Don't compare your spouse to somebody else. He is his own person. He has his own past experiences that have shaped who he is. And that's just not the way to go, comparing him to another brother. Because I'm sure whatever brother that you may be looking at, well, why can't he be like him? I'm sure that brother has had his own set of difficulties that he has had to walk through too. It's just that you weren't around for that probably. Or you meet some people that for the most part, things go pretty smoothly. I want to just give a situation of a couple. I'm not going to give their names. They don't live this way, but their story is just, it was something else. But I'm just going to show you something and share it without using their names or anything for the sake of the privacy of their family. And they don't live this way of life, but they are Hebrew Israelites, but they practice Christianity. But I met this lady many, many years ago, and she seemed to be one of the sweetest women. But what I learned about her was that her husband had been on drugs for a couple of decades. And yes, I said about 20 years. Okay. Through that time, she had children. Through that time, she raised children. And with him and stayed with him for the most part. And I never knew of her or have ever heard that she committed adultery or anything that I knew of. So after 2 decades or more, he finally got off drugs. He got his life together as much as you can get your life together without living for Yah. And it's been that way for many years since. So it's like he was on drugs over 20 years. He stopped, changed. He because of that too, he was able to focus more on the finances. They both, well, she always kind of was so in points, but their life is different now than when I first met them. And so they've been married probably 3 or 4 decades. But when you meet them now, and when you meet him now, if you were to meet him, you would not know that he was on drugs for 20 years or more. You wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that his wife went through all that with him. So what I'm saying is, it's just not good to compare people, because you don't know a lot of times. You don't know what the struggles were before. You see them at the point they are now. And so that's just something important to remember. Or important habit to develop. It's just don't compare your husband and his struggles to other people, because unless you've been with whatever man you compare, unless you've been around on a regular basis whatever man you're trying to compare him to, then you don't know what the struggles that brother has had. And I'm going to say this, even if you have been around a brother, you have only been around him in a certain sense. Okay? In a certain sense, you haven't been around him. People that come in contact with me through work or through me being at the grocery store or through this, that's not like being married to me. So that's something important to remember too. So people that we know, and for example, men that you know and you just around, that's another reason you can't compare your husband to them, because you know them from just your little casual interaction with them. But there are certain ways that you have not dealt with them, that you don't know how they are in other areas. So that's something to remember too. The next thing, you may be thinking to yourself, well, his issues or decisions are affecting our family in a bad way. And honestly, a lot of times it will. Just like our issues and bad habits or bad character flaws also affect our children and families as women. Well, it's going to be the same vice versa. It's a marriage. You became one to build a life together, and your strengths will help each other, and your weaknesses will hurt each other too, and affect the family or you as the spouse. So yes, it's going to be that way. And that's just the honesty of it. If I have an issue or a mindset that's wrong, or a character flaw or a bad habit, it's going to affect my husband. It's going to affect my children more than likely. Same thing works the opposite direction. Whatever character flaws my husband have or have had or whatever, it affects us and our family most of the time. That's just how it is. Some tips to help deal with that. Talk to your husband. But when you talk to him, remember to always speak respectfully. His errors or flaws don't change his position in the family. In the world, on the other side of life, that can be different. You know, you hear people cussing and fussing and clowning or whatever like that. I used to teach my children, if I can ask a person to leave my house, or I can curse them out. Either way, I'm asking the same thing. 9 times out of 10, a person will leave with me just asking them. And I'm just using this for example. And even if I have to get firmer, I don't have to curse, rant, and rave. It's other steps I can take to still remove them from the premises. And so, just saying that to say that we don't have to get out of the way, and we shouldn't, to express ourselves or to express what we're thinking or feeling. And with the Creator, the position that a person is in is the position that they are in. Even when we make mistakes, for example, it would be unacceptable to Yah for our children to come curse us out because they displeased with us about something. Even if we are wrong, if our child came and cursed us out, the Creator would have a problem with that. And so it's the same way with a husband and a wife. It's just not acceptable to be disrespectful in expressing ourselves or expressing how we feel or an issue. So that's something we want to remember, because when we do things in a way that's respectful to the order of Yah, and that's respectful and done in a respectful, when we are respectful when we help in what we say and do to show respect and maintain order with leadership, then Yah can bless our way. It helps our case, especially where the Creator is involved in it, because He don't have to look down and then deal with us and wrong. He can deal with and look at just whatever situation is at hand. So that is something to remember. Speak to your spouse about whatever the problems are, but just do it in a respectful way. Because even if he is wrong, it's not an excuse to be disrespectful. Consider timing when speaking with him, because sometimes timing can play a part in how well a person hears us or how well our spouse hears us. And so you don't want to pick a time where it's been a long day and it's just, so choose a time that's good for him and also, good for you. Next thing is be clear and honest about whatever the issue is. Be honest and be clear. So if you're the type of person that writes better than you speak, maybe you want to write down. Maybe you, what I mean is, like, if you're the type of person who you write your thoughts are clear when you write them, then write it down. And when you talk to him, just read it from what you wrote. But just be sure, whether you're speaking or writing, just be sure to be clear. Be honest. If his response is negative, that's okay. That's okay. If what you're saying is true and he is seeking Yah, Yah will verify your point. Yah will show him what you're saying. He'll verify. I have had this happen. So, so if you write in your thought or what you're saying or what you're experiencing with your spouse that's hard or difficult, Yah will back you up. He'll show him that, yeah, maybe I do get angry too quick. He'll show him in another way. It'll be with somebody else. And he'll think about it. My wife told me this the other day. You know, you have to have patience and continue to do well yourself and focus on your walk with Yah. So, as you're waiting for whatever changes your spouse needs to make, then at the same time, you can't just focus on them and what all they're doing wrong. You still have to work on yourself too, and whatever Yah is showing you to help keep yourself in line or continue to get in line with the Creator. This becomes important because Yah can support you when you're in line with Him yourself. So the more that we are in line with the Creator, the more the Creator can come to our aid in a good way. Because we know as a people, Yah can either bless us or curse us according to what we're doing or what we're thinking. Well, condense that down to you as the individual. It's the same thing. So you don't want to get overly absorbed into he's wrong, he's wrong, he's wrong, and then lose sight of the things that Yah may be showing you to work on too, because that's still there for you to do too. And that's your work to put in, because your husband has his work to put in with himself and getting in line with Yah, and then we have our work to do too on whatever Yah is showing you at the time. All my tips require patience and discipline. If you don't have patience, that's not uncommon, because once you develop patience, they're still maintaining patience. And so it's like you're always doing work concerning patience. I have some videos here concerning patience, or a video. I think it's called Patience, A Key to Endurance. You may want to go watch that. It may be in the playlist. I'm not sure. But patience and discipline will be required for everything all the tips I gave. Patience and discipline can take time to develop. So it's not going to be something where if you don't have a lot of patience, like you go to bed, you pray about it, you wake up, boom, and you have all the patience you need. It's not like that. You just work on it. One of the first steps is always recognizing the problem, because most issues that we have are not going to be resolved overnight. And if you want Yah to help them to be resolved righteously, then we have to keep ourselves in order and on the right path with Yah, as our spouses are trying to do that too. And I'm speaking from that point because I'm assuming your spouse is trying to walk with Yah. If they are not, then really the same things kind of apply, because you have to still wait to see what the resolution of all that is going to be. But I'm coming from a standpoint of it's a husband and wife seeking Yah together. But patience and discipline can be developed if you don't have a lot of it. Most of us don't. And it does take time. You have to, it's so important when you're dealing with character flaws and developing patience and discipline to mind build, to build your mind. What are you watching? What are you reading? Who are the people around you? Do you study the word of Yah, especially as it pertains to you and the things that you need to change or whatever. Those are some things to think about. The mind is a very delicate thing. Okay. So I have a series on this channel about mind building. That is on a playlist. And I wanted to put some things on this channel in a convenient way. And I thought the playlist, having some things in a playlist format may be helpful to you. So if you go to the playlist, there is mind building videos in a playlist there. And I think there's a patience playlist, I think, too. Or I know there's at least one video on concerning patience. And in these videos, I give tips that I hope will be helpful to you, or it's intended to be helpful to you. So I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any questions for me, then you can ask them under this video. You can also follow Supporting Yah's Cornerstone on Instagram. I am no longer on Facebook right now. Supporting Yah's Cornerstone is not on Facebook right now. That's an update to that. I don't know if I will put it back on Facebook or not. But if you can ask any questions here, you can also ask on Instagram under Supporting Yah's Cornerstone on that page. Also, you can email me at yahscornerstone@gmail.com. yahscornerstone@gmail.com. I want to thank you for watching. I thank the Creator for blessing me to be able to do this video and for everything He's done in my life. And I pray that you are able to overcome. It's my hope through this series that I'll be able to help those women that need it. And if you already know these things, then please share, even if it's not through a YouTube format or a social media format. It's my hope that more and more of our marriages stay together within this nation. A nation is built up of families. So it's my hope that our families can more and more endure and serve Yah together. Thank you for your time. Shalom, shalom.